If you have a Bible, go and open up to Matthew chapter 9. We'll jump straight in, verse 14 through 17. It'll be on the screen. You can also have it in your laps. If you haven't been with us, we've been going through the Gospel of Matthew together, and we come to this passage, Matthew 9:14. Then the disciples of John came to Jesus saying, "Why do we and the Pharisees fast, but your disciples don't fast?" And Jesus said to them, "Can the wedding guests mourn as long as the bridegroom is with them? The days will come when the bridegroom is taken away from them, and then they will fast. No one puts a piece of unshrunk cloth on an old garment, for the patch tears away from the garment, and a worse tear is made. Neither is new wine put into old wineskins. If it is, the skin bursts, and the wine is spilled, and the skins are destroyed. But new wine is put into fresh wineskins, and so both are preserved." If you've been with us the last couple of weeks, this is the third interaction that Jesus has with three different groups of people in Matthew 9, and he offends every single one of them. In the beginning of Matthew 9, the scribes come to him, and they're offended because he claims the ability to forgive sins of the man on the mat. Last week, we saw that the Pharisees are offended because he's feasting with Matthew, with tax collectors and sinners, and they can't believe he would rub shoulders with people like that. In this passage, the disciples of John are offended because they can't figure out why are they fasting and his disciples aren't fasting. If you've ever fasted before, you know you're mad that nobody else is not eating like you aren't. Like, it's not fun. And so he's an equal opportunity offender. The religious elites are offended by him. The conservatives are offended by him. Even the disciples of John, the kind of insiders, the ones close to his movement, they're all offended. And here's what we see. Matthew's trying to show us Jesus does not fit neatly into our boxes. As soon as you think you have Jesus figured out, I promise you, you don't. He will do something or say something that will offend you, that will surprise you, that will challenge you, some idol in your life, some expectation you have about God, some assumption you think about how life should go or how God should operate. Jesus will challenge it every single time. He's the equal opportunity offender. He'll offend anybody. And he does that in this passage with these disciples of John. He shows them he can't fit neatly in their categories. Realize this, the disciples of John are not skeptical of Jesus. This is John the Baptist. John the Baptist has been telling them, hey, this guy's coming. I'm just preparing the way for him. I'm going to sort of move out of the way, and he's going to move into the limelight. You're waiting for him. It's all about him. They're ready for him to come. They're excited for him to come. They really want to absorb his teaching. But when he comes, they are confused by him. They can't figure out how he operates and the way he's teaching and the things that he leads his disciples to do. And the question in this passage is this: why don't your disciples fast like we do? Why don't your disciples fast like the Pharisees do? In other words, everybody's fasting except for y'all. So to figure out what's going on here, we got to do a little brief history of fasting for the Jewish people. There was only one commanded fast in the Old Testament on the Day of Atonement. That was it. But over time, it became a sign of devotion to God and of kind of religion 101 for fasting to be a part of your spiritual practices. And we see it all throughout the Old Testament for voluntary fasting becoming a common practice. God's people did it in all sorts of different ways. They fasted in times of grief and mourning, like David in 2 Samuel 12 when his son is dying. They fasted as an expression of repentance, like the people of Israel in Nehemiah chapter 9. They fasted to seek God's help in a time of crisis, like the Jews in Esther 4. They fasted when seeking God's protection on a dangerous journey. We like to call that traveling mercies. I don't know if you've ever heard that phrase before in kind of Christian circles. They fasted for protection, like in Ezra chapter 8. Over time, here's what fasting became. It became an indication for you to say, humbly, God, I am dependent on you. I need you to show up. And the way I'm going to do that is by abstaining for food for a while to show you that I need you in this situation. By the time Jesus came around, there were three things at the top of the list that you would know you were serious about God. Prayer, giving to the poor, and fasting. That'd be a fascinating case study. What are the three most important kind of spiritual disciplines in the church today? It'd be more, prayer would probably stay, more like Bible reading, going to church, things like that. But for them, Prayer, giving to the poor, and fasting. It was that important in the life of anyone who was serious about following God. The Pharisees fasted twice a week. Can you imagine? Mondays and Thursdays. The disciples of John seems like they follow some sort of similar practice. It would be like today, if you saw a group of people, some church somewhere, who said they were serious about following God, but they never opened the Bible. You'd be like, that I can't compute. Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, anybody who's serious about following God, you have to open the Bible. Fasting would have been that integral for them, that important for people who love God. And so John's disciples can't make any sense out of the fact that Jesus' disciples don't fast. In fact, they just saw them in Matthew's house feasting, maybe the night before. They have no category for this group of people that Jesus is leading. So they asked Jesus, what's the deal? Why no fasting? Jesus never answers a question directly. Have you ever noticed that before? People ask him like the most clear, straightforward, yes or no, give me a direct answer type of thing. And he's like, why don't I tell you a parable to answer that question? He loves to do that. And instead of answering directly in this passage, here's what he says. They say, why no fasting? And he says, can the wedding guests mourn as long as the bridegroom is with them? Can the wedding guests mourn as long as the bridegroom is with them? What is the deal with that answer? There are a lot of ways that God describes his relationship to us. We're like sheep. He's like a shepherd. He calls us friends. He is our king. There are a lot of ways he describes our relationship. One of his favorites is this, though. He is the groom and we're the bride, which immediately makes every guy uncomfortable. Right? There are other metaphors we love, like we're athletes, Paul says, we're soldiers, even farmers. We don't know how to farm, but we can get kind of comfortable with that. I don't really want to be the bride, though. Like, can we go with some other kind of picture? But all throughout the Bible, God describes himself this way. He's the groom, we're the bride. Hosea chapter 2, in that day, this is the Lord's declaration. You will call me husband. I will take you as my wife forever. I will take you to be my wife in righteousness, justice, love, and compassion. I will take you to be my wife in faithfulness, and you will know the Lord. Isaiah 62, as a bridegroom rejoices over the bride, so shall your God rejoice over you. He is the groom, we are the bride. But did you notice all of those promises are future tense? One day I will rejoice over you like a groom rejoices over a bride. And what Jesus is saying in this passage is this: all of those times that the prophets are looking forward to the groom coming and taking you, God's people, as the bride, it's fulfilled today. I'm here. I'm the groom. I'm in your midst. It's all been pointing to me. And once you understand who Jesus is claiming to be, his answer makes perfect sense. There are places like Zechariah chapter 8 that talk about fasting, and they say, hey, you fast now, but one day when the king comes, when the groom comes, you won't fast anymore. That will be a time of feasting. And for generations, God's people have been waiting for that promise to be fulfilled when the king, the groom, would come. And Jesus says that day has arrived. In other words, this is wedding time. We're together, finally. You know, we kind of get this because we do weddings pretty big. A lot of planning, a lot of celebration, a lot of food, a lot goes into planning a wedding and throwing it. We have a couple-hour party with dancing, and maybe you hold off from the dancing, whatever, but most people are dancing, whatever. We're having a good time. They understood this even more than we do. Their weddings were a week long. All kind of feasting and celebrating and laughing. I mean, for some of you, that sounds awesome. For some of you, that sounds like your worst nightmare. You're like out after the first dance, like you can't wait to get out of there. But the point is this: nobody goes to a wedding and says, you know what I think would really honor the bride and groom? If I kind of stayed over here in the corner and didn't eat all that good food and didn't participate in that dancing and didn't have the drink that they have out, and I'm just gonna fast. And if anybody asks why I'm not having a good time, I'm going to say, well, I'm actually fasting tonight. That would be, you would not want to hang out with that person, right? You're like, please make sure my table number is not at their table. Like, you understand, that would be totally inappropriate. Wedding time is a time for celebration. And what Jesus is saying about his disciples is this: the bridegroom is here. The Messiah is here. This is wedding season. The arrival of me changes everything. No more fasting. It's all feasting. It's all celebration. It changes everything. That's the point he makes next. Look back at these little parables he tells. Nobody puts a piece of unshrunk cloth on an old garment. I love when he says stuff like that. You're like, yeah, duh, Jesus, I would never do that. That's crazy. Nobody puts a piece of unshrunk cloth on an old garment, for the patch tears away from the garment, and a worse tear is made. Neither is new wine put into old wineskins. If you do that, the skin will burst, and the wine will be spilled, and the skins are destroyed. But the new wine is put into fresh wineskins, so that both are preserved. Here's what Jesus is saying. Hey, I know we're having a conversation about fasting right now, but this is actually a bigger conversation about who I am and what I've come to do. Let me tell you a couple of parables. And the first parable is this. Their garments were pre-shrunk. And if you got a hole in your clothes and you tried to put a piece of cloth on the pre-shrunk garment that had not been pre-shrunk, when you wash it for the first time, it's gonna shrink and it's gonna tear those fibers away. It took me a long time this week to figure out what that meant. I'm not what do you call that? I don't sew, okay? In the same way, old wineskins would get brittle and hard. And if you tried to ferment new wine in them when the gases were released and whatever in the world happens when wine ferments, I don't know, it would break the old wineskins. Jesus' point is pretty clear. If you just try to treat me like an add-on to your life, it won't work. I haven't come just to be a little patch. I haven't come just to fit neatly into your categories. I've come to give you I bring a totally new kingdom, a totally new way to live. Totally new categories. And we can apply that, can't we? Christianity doesn't work if you think, I can just kind of live life the same way. I'll take a little bit of Jesus so I can be happy. A little bit of Jesus so my anxiety level will go down. A little bit of Jesus because actually it's pretty advantageous to be a Christian in our culture and business, right? It's good to say you're a Christian, which is just a little bit of Jesus. Just kind of add him on to what I've got. And Jesus said, maybe you've tried Jesus like that and you feel like Christianity is not working for you, and this passage teaches you why. You cannot just put him onto your life as a patch and think it's gonna work. It will burst. We saw that with Matthew last week. He doesn't come to Matthew and say, hey, stay a tax collector, keep living your life like you're living, just add me onto it. Come to church on Sundays, the rest can stay the same. No, he says, get up and follow me. Everything is different now. Totally new categories, totally new ways of living. The Pharisees kind of get a bad rap in Scripture. We think of the Pharisees like the bad guys, always. Like the Pharisees enter the story and we're like, great, here comes a fight, white hats, black hats, this is it, this is the whole deal. Realize though, the Pharisees and Jesus were not that far apart. They wanted many of the same things. The Pharisees loved the scriptures. The Pharisees cared about holiness. The Pharisees wanted to see revival among God's people. They wanted very similar things. But here's what they wanted to do. They wanted to say to Jesus, you take all of our teaching and fit into it. And Jesus says, not possible. What I bring is something totally different. They want a little more religion. Jesus brings a whole new reality, a whole new kingdom. They assume your disciples should look like ours. But Jesus gives them a totally different picture. Paul talks about this in Philippians chapter 3. You can go read it later, but Paul goes on a little bragging. He takes a minute. He's like, just take this in for a second. Basically, I was top of my class, most religiously conservative guy, memorized the whole Bible, best in my clan, best in my family, most learned kid. I was killing Judaism, basically. Next verse. I consider it all as loss compared to the surpassing worth of knowing Jesus Christ. And then he uses this word that we translate dung in the next verse. It's a lot stronger than that, actually. A word I can't say up here, probably. But Paul is trying to create this picture to show you he met Jesus and he found something that was so invaluable, so different, so worth leaving everything behind. The whole system he had built his life on, he says it's totally lost. It's a bunch of crap. Because I've found someone worth following and giving my life to. Christianity is about Jesus becoming your life. But then something really unexpected happens. Verse 15, but the days will come when the bridegroom is taken away from them, and then they will fast. If you ever ask somebody, hey, how'd the wedding go last night? And they say, the wedding was going great, and then we lost the groom. That's a bad wedding, right? Like, we don't know where he went. Like, we started the reception, all of a sudden he was gone. I don't know. That's not good. And Jesus flips it. It's wedding season, but then the groom is taken away. This language, taken away, is like taken violently by force. It's almost like the first indication that Matthew gives us of what's coming in Jesus' life later. He's going to be taken away forcefully from us. And Jesus says, when that happens, then you will fast. We're in a season that theologians call the already, but the not yet. Our groom has come for us, but now he's been taken away, and he's going to come back to finally fulfill the wedding. You could call the season we're in as Christians right now as like engagement season. It's like the closest parallel we have. And if you've ever been engaged before, that phrase just sent a chill down your spine. Engagement season is awful, right? Like, you're just waiting. You're just in the middle of like this great thing that is coming, but you can't wait to get out of it. And that's kind of what the Christian life can feel like sometimes. We're just in this season of waiting, of engagement. Couples in Jesus' time would have felt that even more than we do. Let me just give you a little background on how Jewish weddings work. The first thing is this: they had arranged marriages, which I used to think was weird, but now that I have two little girls, I kind of think, I don't know. I could see the kind of value in that. So if anybody wants to talk, let me know. There also was a tradition that the groom's family would pay the bride's family a bride price. So we're also going to factor that in, just so you know. There's going to be a money exchanging hands here. Now the bride's family pays for the whole, okay, this is beside the point. But they're arranged marriages, and basically the groom's family would talk with the bride's family. We think they would be a good match. The groom would come to the bride if he, kind of agreed, which he always did, and said, here's a cup of wine. And if she took a sip of it, it was indication that she accepted the proposal. And then he would leave. And he would go back to his father's house and add a room onto his father's house so that they could live there together. That's probably a tradition you're okay with dying, right? You don't really want to live with your parents as newlyweds. And so he'd be gone for a while. And she's just waiting. No FaceTime, no texting, no indication. How long do construction projects take? Like, the adding on the room, when are we going to be done with it? Finally, he would finish adding on this room to his parents' house, and he would come back for his bride, and there'd be trumpets and fanfare. He'd do a whole parade. We're going to see this in Matthew 25. He would finally come back, and he would come back for her, and she would be waiting for him. She would be ready. I tell you all of that to give you context for John 14, when Jesus offers a cup of wine to his disciples at the Last Supper, and they take a sip of it, and almost immediately after he says, in my Father's house, there are many rooms. I go to prepare a place for you so that I can come back and take you to be there with me also. It's his engagement speech to us. And now we wait until the rooms are ready, until he comes back for us with trumpets in the clouds and with a great fanfare. Jesus will return, our groom, to finally take him to himself. I love doing weddings so much. And the best moment is this, best moment by far, you know it. The doors open in the back. You finally see the bride, and she's looking at the groom. And then what's the next thing you do? You look at the groom, right? And he's looking at the bride, and if you're lucky, he's crying, right? And she's trying not to cry because that would mess up the whole makeup situation. And they're just looking back and forth at each other. They couldn't care less that you're in the room at all. You might as well not shown up. They've got their eyes on one person. They are so ready. Here's the question. How do we cultivate in our hearts that kind of readiness for Jesus to come back and finally end this engagement season? And the answer in this passage is, one of the answers is, we learn to fast. So I want to spend a few minutes talking about fasting and how it can prepare our hearts for Jesus' return as we wait for him. To do it, we got to go all the way back to Genesis chapter 3. Let me read this quickly for us. Now the serpent was more crafty than any other beast of the field that the Lord God had made. He said to the woman, did God actually say, you shall not eat of any tree in the garden? And the woman said to the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees in the garden. But God said, you shall not eat of the fruit of the tree that is in the midst of the garden, neither shall you touch it, lest you die. But the serpent said to the woman, "You will not surely die, for God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." When the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and it was a delight to the eyes, the tree was desired to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate. She also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate. Then the eyes of both were opened, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves loincloths. You could debate what the first sin was. Who sinned first? You could say like Adam was kind of passive. He was just kind of standing there while Eve sinned. You could say Eve lacked self-control. You could say it was lack of trust in God. There are a bunch of different answers for the question. Isn't it interesting though, that the form that the temptation of the sin comes in is food? Could have come any way, right? But there's something about food that Satan uses with Adam and Eve to tempt them into the first sin. And fast forward a few thousand years later when the second Adam comes and we read this account. Then Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. That sounds familiar. And after fasting for 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. That makes sense. And the tempter came and said to him, "If you are the Son of God, command these stones to become loaves of bread." Another temptation about food, and Jesus responds, "Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God." You should be getting deja vu like crazy. Tempter shows up. How about this food? Here's a sin I could lead you into. But Jesus, as the second Adam, is able to withstand that sin. And how did he do it? A lot of different ways. But do notice that he had been fasting for 40 days. I'm not going to end this sermon by asking you to fast for 40 days, just FYI. That's not coming. But we sort of assume Jesus has a moment of weakness here. I mean, if you've been fasting for 40 days, you're pretty weak. Actually, physically weak maybe. Spiritually, though, Jesus is more connected to his Father in a sense than he has ever been. He is prepared for this moment spiritually. And we, too, Jesus says, bring fasting into our way of living. Look at Matthew chapter 6. "And when you fast, do not look gloomy like the hypocrites, for they disfigure their faces, that their fasting may be seen by others. Truly I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you fast, anoint your head, wash your face, that your fasting may not be seen by others, but by your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you." Notice that Jesus assumes two things. It starts like this: when you fast. There is a built-in assumption. Fasting is not talked about much in the New Testament, but there's a built-in assumption. This will be part of our discipleship to Jesus, that we'll be fasting. Secondly, he assumes you're gonna screw it up. Don't I love that? He's like, all right, when you fast, here's the 4 ways you're gonna mess up. Don't tell everybody about it. Don't make a big deal about it. Don't taunt it in everyone's faces. Fasting, though, is a normal part of the church from the very beginning. In Acts 13 and 14, the church fasts before sending missionaries and appointing elders. Paul talks about fasting in 2 Corinthians 11 being a part of his ministry. Fasting wasn't strange to the early church. It was part of following Jesus. This lasted at least until the 18th century. Listen to this quote from John Wesley. John Wesley in the 18th century. "I fear there are now thousands of Methodists, so-called, both in England and Ireland, who, following the same bad example, who have entirely left off fasting, who are so far from fasting twice a week as the stricter Pharisees did, they don't even fast twice in a month." He's like flabbergasted. Can't even imagine, right? If we never fast as Christians, we are the exception in the history of the church. It's normal. It's been a normal practice. But it's weird for us now. Most of us have never messed up fasting because if we're honest, we don't really do it, right? We'd rather do other things. Like fasting is weird for us, sort of uncontrollable, something with our bodies instead of our minds. We love things with our minds with Presbyterians. Give me another book to read, something else to memorize. Tell me not to eat for a little while. Not so sure about that. A little weird. So we left it behind. And there's been some abuse of fasting, but I think another reason is this. Our relationship with food has changed. We are at an abnormal time in human history. I know you know that, where you can go to, within half a mile of here, you can have anything you want to eat, anything. Food has become for us not just a fuel, not just a way to make it through life, but a mask for things that we'd rather not have pop up in us. We feel uncomfortable, we eat. Feel insecure, we eat. We feel lonely, we eat. Feel sad, we eat. It's just part of what's happened in our culture. Our appetites have begun to master us instead of serving us, and that's where fasting comes in. Here's just a quick definition of fasting. Fasting is going without food for a period of time to give yourself over more fully to God and feed on the Holy Spirit. I love how John Piper says it. Fasting is a way of saying with our stomach and our whole body how much we need and want and trust Jesus. It is a whole body hungering for God. Let me give you quickly 5 reasons we don't fast, 3 reasons we do. This will go fast. We don't fast to be seen by others. Jesus is clear about that. Don't make a big deal about it. I had lunch with somebody one time, and they didn't get food, and I got food, and I was like, what's the deal? He's like, oh, I'm fasting today. And I was like, well, why did you schedule lunch? Like, we could have done we could have gone bowling. You know what I mean? Like, literally anything. Why are we sitting at a table right now? And he was not making a big deal about it, but we don't do it to be seen by others. Number 2, we don't do it to earn God's favor. So many spiritual disciplines can quickly turn into, we do this to please God so he gives us what we want. God is altogether pleased with you through the finished work of Christ on your behalf. You don't have to do a single thing to make God love you more. Not one more thing. Number 3, we don't do it as an end in of itself. We don't do it just to fast. Almost every world religion fasts, almost every single one. And the end goal there is just deny yourself, just asceticism, just pain for your body. Fasting has no spiritual power in itself unless it takes us to Jesus. That's the goal. Number 4, because food is bad, food is a good gift. And number 5, we don't fast to lose weight or improve our health. I know some of you intermittent fast. I've intermittent fasted before. Just as an aside, all kind of research is coming out all the time about how good fasting is for our bodies. I find that amazing because God's like, yeah, I tried to tell you, right? Like, this is what I made you for, you know? Like, this is supposed to be a part of your rhythm. I just love when things like that match up. But that's not the reason that we do it, right? It's not the reason we do it. 3 reasons we do fast. Number 1, because Jesus assumes that we will. And so we want to be obedient to him. The New Testament doesn't have a lot to say about fasting, but it does have enough to say that we realize this is part of a normal Christian life too. There are a lot of biblical reasons to fast that we won't go through right now. But I'll just give you one quick story. I used to work with a guy who was struggling with severe porn addiction, and he couldn't figure out how to get out of it. You know how he got out of it eventually? He decided to do a 3-day fast. And something about that clicked in his mind, where if you starve the flesh literally, there is some kind of connection with starving the flesh spiritually. I'm not advocating that will work for everyone and in every situation. I'm just saying we would never consider that. We would ask people to pray for us. We would put covenant eyes on our computer. We would read the Bible. What about fasting? There are lots of reasons to fast. If you want to see God's kingdom break into some area of your life, fast. If you mourn over your sin, fast. If you hunger and thirst for righteousness, then fast. If you want wisdom or you're grieving or you're fighting sin, fast. But the main reason that we have in this passage to fast is this, and we'll close here. We fast because more than anything, more than food, more than anything we want in life, we want Jesus to come back. We want him to come back. Our greatest hope, our greatest treasure. I spend so much of my day thinking about what I'm going to eat next. I don't know if you're anything like that. I wake up and think about what I'm going to eat for breakfast. I finish breakfast and I think, am I going to have a snack about 10 a.m. when I get hungry? I finish the snack and I think, where am I going for lunch today? I look up the menu online if I'm going out. What am I going to get there? I get halfway through the afternoon, there's another snack. We go on vacation, we're like sitting at lunch. There's a Jim Gaffigan thing about this, I think. We're like eating lunch and talking about where we're gonna eat dinner. Like, so much of our life is building around, like, we just love to eat. I love to eat, it's nothing against it. Fasting is a way, though, to say, even more than I look forward to my next meal, even more than I look forward to that good thing that I'm going to eat, Jesus, I look forward to you coming back, and I'm going to give up food to say with my body to you, come back. John Piper again. This is a tough quote, but just receive it, hear it. The absence of our fasting, he says, is the measure of our contentment with the absence of Christ. I think you know me well enough by now. My goal here is not to heap some sort of legalistic expectation on you. That's not the point. The point is, though, we can train our minds and our bodies and our hearts to long for Jesus to come back in this specific way. We give up food for a while, and instead of eating, we pray and say, Jesus, would you come back? I'm tired of engagement season. Man, it is old. I want to be with you. I want this to be over. I know some of you can't fast for health reasons or other things in your past. Totally understand that. Don't do it. Totally fine. Fast from something else that might have a grip on your heart. But if you're able to fast, I want us to consider doing this together. John Calvin gives 3 categories of ways you can fast. Number 1 is time. This is what we traditionally think of. You can fast for 24 hours, 72 hours, 40 days, whatever you want to do. Fast for a specific period of time. Fast until after lunch, whatever. The second way, he says, you can fast from quality food. So we won't have a big conversation about what quality food is and what quality food's not. Whatever you think it is, fast from the quality of food for a while and eat just something lesser. And the third way, the quantity of food. Maybe you just eat something less for a time. But the point is this, the goal is this. We want to cultivate in our hearts a deep hunger for God. The arrival of Jesus changed everything. That's what this whole passage was about. And we want him to come again. Because when he comes again, brothers and sisters, it will change everything. We will be with him, free from the presence of sin, all of our pain, all of our sickness, all of our fear, all of our anxiety, all of our worries, all of our doubts. We will be with him forever. And so we fast to say, Jesus, come quickly.